and welcome to the 17th episode of the Nature's Cozy podcast. My name is Allison, and you can find me by that username both on Instagram and on Ravelry. If you are new to this channel, welcome. This is a making video where I mostly talk about knitting, and every so often I will have some sewing or crochet. And I also like to talk about books at the end of my videos. And if this is not your first time, welcome back. I also want to give out a huge thank you to Kevin and Ray of the Needles at the Ready podcast. If you are a new subscriber who came along after they recommended me on their podcast, thank you so much for joining me as I talk about all the things that I'm currently making and just my overall journey in this community. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't checked out their podcast yet, I will have it linked down below. I'd highly recommend checking them out. And yeah, just thank you so much. Just to everyone who's new and not new too, just thank you for all the support. I am currently drinking some tea today. I have been in a little bit more of a tea mood of late. I'm drinking it out of my new Shelly can mug. Make Woolwich Magic, and this was, I think, a limited edition. I really love it. I am drinking apple cider chai, and it's pretty good. I'm like slowly trying to get through all of my teas that I had from the Advent, and today I think is a really good day to drink it because it is snowing like crazy here. I'm coming from Chicago, Illinois, and it is currently February 15th, 2021. And it's been cold here. Like, it's in the mornings, it's like in the negatives with the wind chill. I think my boyfriend said it was like -20 this morning with the wind chill. Which, you know, if you even go up more north to like Minnesota or like Wisconsin, it gets even colder. So yeah, the Midwest has been pretty chilly of late. I feel like I have a lot to talk about today, but I also just want to make sure that I get through my knitting first. Because I think I spent like 10 minutes beforehand just chit-chatting before I got into knitting in the last podcast. And as much as I love talking, I'm going to try to like save that more for later on in the episode. But first, before I do start talking about knitting, I think we have a little bit of a giveaway. So in my last episode, I asked if you wanted to be entered into this giveaway to win these 2 skeins of Plucky Knitter. If you could just comment down below what your what you wanted to make for 2021 or some like your knitting goals and all of that. And there was a little bit over 20 people who commented, and I wrote everyone's names down and I put them in this little bag that I have, and I figured I like to draw them out instead of using a random number generator. At this point I can, if there's like 500 names anytime in the future or, you know, more. Oh, hi. My cat is joining me. You want to say hi? Want to say hi? Hi. How's it going? This is my cat, Shadowfax. Want to say hi? He was sleeping, and of course, as soon as I podcast, he now wants all the attention. So you might hear him in the background. But yeah, so I have all the names in this bag, and I figured I would just... What are you doing? Sorry, we're playing with the pen now. Okay. Where were we? So I have all of these names in this bag, and the winner is Wool Dashery. That might be getting blown out right now, but you can see Wool Dashery, you are the winner. Congratulations. If you are on Instagram or Ravelry, please shoot me a message on there and we can figure out shipping. If you are on neither of those platforms, just like leave a comment down below and we could figure something out. I also apologize if you hear any snowblowers or shoveling outside. They did stop for a little bit and now they're back. Again, it's like snowing like crazy right now. Yeah, so hopefully it's not too loud, but just in case, sorry. So the first make that I wanted to talk about is my finished object. I completed my Habitation throw. I love this so much. I haven't been using it because I wanted to wait until I showed it on the podcast. But it is amazing. And so this ended up being about 42 by 36, or like I think 41.5 by 36. I used the minis from the Dragon Hoard yarn Advent. It was the Court of Thorns and Roses Advent from October. And I ended up holding the minis double. And I also used a US 8. I believe in the pattern, it calls for a 6. This is by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade, which will be linked down below. I always link all the projects that I'm working on down below. And yeah, I absolutely love it. I love how she kind of dyed this as a fade, and that's what I knew it would be perfect as a Habitation throw. If you are curious to know what all of these colors are, I do have them listed on my Ravelry page, because, you know, maybe you're a fan of the Court of Thorns and Roses series as well, and maybe we just want to check out the kind of names that she's dyed up. She also dyes up a bunch of full skeins. This is Dragon Hoard yarn. I believe I said that already, but just in case. Yeah, there's been some that I'm like, oh my goodness, I want to buy it so bad, but I am on that yarn diet, and so I've been, you know, just holding out. So I really love the material that I got with this. I don't know if you can tell, like, the squish factor. I have the I Smell Snow Shawl by Melody Hoffman, and that is knit very, like, kind of similar to this. It's fingering weight, and it calls for a US 6, and it's has like eyelets and garter and stuff. And I knew that like, as much as I've been wearing that shawl a lot this winter, and I love that shawl, and it's folded double, so it ends up being like 2 skeins. It ends up being 4 skeins total, and then you double it over. But I knew, like, if it's single, like if I don't roll it together, it's a little bit thin, and I wanted this to be thicker. So yeah, I absolutely love it. I think if I make this again, I will definitely still hold a double, because as I just went on right now, I do love the fabric that I got with it. It fits over my lap pretty well. So it's great for, like, when I'm on the couch, if I'm like knitting and watching TV, or if I'm like reading books. I think it's like the perfect throw. Because I don't like things over my arms, right? If you're like knitting or something. But I think if I were to make this again, more so as like a blanket, unless it's like a baby or a child, because I think for like a baby or a toddler, this is like perfect. I would probably maybe go up to 40 colors. So this had 31 total because it was an October advent. But I think doing maybe like 20 and 20 would be like, just give it a little bit more length. But besides that, yeah, I love it a bunch. So that's the only finished object that I have. And then the other project that is not new on my needles is my Pink Fizz. So I haven't really worked that much on my Pink Fizz, and I'll talk a little bit more about like why. But I wanted to show it before I started showing my new projects, because again, this is what I had last time. So this is in my Jenna Rose bag, which I love. And this is all the progress that I've made so far. Oh, I guess if you don't know what it looks like, here is a picture. This is by Andrea Mowry. And I was knitting this for my New Year's New Skill cast on. So the virtual knitting group that I haven't really been attending lately because I've been super busy. But we usually do like meet on Thursday nights, and we did like a New Year, New Skills. And so I've never knit a bottom up sweater before, And so this was my new skill. But I just said I haven't made much progress. So this little stitch marker that I have is from Katie from Lock and Lou, and that's where I was last time, and that's how much I've done. So I mean, I'm starting to get some of the lace going. Also these stitch markers, I think last time I said these were by Katie from Lock and Lou. These are not. These are Hello Lavender. And I love them. They're awesome. I'll have, again, these all linked down below, or like their web pages. Yeah, and I love this color. I think that seems pretty accurate right there. It can be kind of hard sometimes to try to get it because it's like it's a purplish red. It's a very, to me, reminds me of wine. And the colorway is called Bordeaux. And but yeah, that right there from my view looks pretty accurate. So I'm using Knitting for Olive, and I have to kind of get a new skein of mohair, and I'm almost out of this skein too. Yeah, I will be working on this again, but I have another project I need to finish first. And I think the other thing I wanted to mention about this project was that last time I talked about how I went down a needle size for my body, and since then I have decided that that is not okay. And I ended up actually knitting using the needles recommended for the body, which is a size 6. I'm knitting these on my Chow Goo, and I decided to not use a USY for the body. Because I was talking, so I also, when I can, attend Saturday Zoom knitting with a couple of ladies who are awesome, and we were all knitting the pink fizz, and we were all just kind of talking about it, and I only knit a few rows with the US 8 on the bottom, but after talking about it with them, I realized that's probably not the way to go. When I knit the Ronin by Andrea Mowry, I had to go down a needle size, and granted, I even said this, I think, last time, how she knit that much, I don't know, like 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And obviously, like, her gauge can change, but I just thought because there's positive ease in it, that if it was a little bit tighter, that'd be totally fine, because I don't like a ton of positive ease. Like, I do, but I don't. It's really trying to find that middle of having cute positive ease without looking like a potato sack. But I think in the pattern she recommends 10 inches, and with my bust size I'm more so like 7 inches. So I feel like even like measuring this unblocked, I think I'm on gauge, what I would assume would be gauge, but it seems like even if I am either on gauge or if it ends up being a little bit looser, because I'm still a couple inches shorter from the positive ease that's recommended, I think I'll be okay. That's really just the long story short. I went up a needle size because if it ends up being a little bit of extra positive ease, it's totally fine, because the size I already chose had a little bit less positive ease than what was recommended in the pattern. So that's that. So last time I chit-chatted with you guys, I talked about how I really wanted to knit the Don't Panic socks by Hugo Canyon, and I still really want to knit those. I ended up not casting those on. I was very gung-ho about it. I was like, I'm going to cast these on the day I podcasted, and I forgot what happened, but I think the day just ended up getting away from me, and I didn't. And then the next morning, I was like very Habitation throw focused again. So I didn't do that, and yeah, I mean, it's my knitting, it's whatever I want to knit, but I also feel kind of bad for not casting those on after talking about them. So I just kind of wanted to be like, hey, I didn't do it. But I did cast on a couple of other things, but I just wanted to talk again really quickly about my knitting, before I talk about them. So one of the things that I'm trying to do this year is focus. I think a couple of episodes ago I talked about how I want to like venture as my word of the year or something like that. But I actually changed my word of the year to focus because there's a lot of things I need to get done this year. And I realized how much like I feel very overwhelmed when I have too many projects going on. So I'm really trying to stick to one pattern project, one simple project that's like mindless that I could probably like read and do for the most part. And then I have like my scrappy blankets, my granny stripe blankets. And so I have really been focusing on that this past few weeks since the last time I podcasted, and I actually love how things are progressing. So once I casted off my Habitation throw, I ended up casting on a pair of vanilla socks for my boyfriend. And so I have this in the Blue Rabbit House bag. I have a few of her bags. This one's my favorite because wolves are my favorite animal. And I am working on some socks for my boyfriend. The yarn is coming undone, so it might look a little messy. Yeah, so I decided to cast on some vanilla socks for my boyfriend. I knit him a pair of Christmas socks a couple years ago, and recently he's been wearing them like every weekend, and those are the only socks I ever knit for him, so I figured it was time to make him some new ones. And so I am working on, this is Rocky Mountain National Park by Explorer Knits and Fibers. And I have a little wren bird on here from Katie from Lock and Lou. And yeah, I think so far it's turning out great. I cast it on 72 stitches. I again used the Chow Goo, the 9-inch needles. That's what I knit all of my socks on. And this was a sock set. And yeah, so I cast it on 72, and then I did 20 rows of twisted rib for the cuff. And I usually, for my vanilla socks, have been doing 60 rows for the leg, but for my boyfriend, I'm going to do 70 just to give him a little bit more length. I don't know, did I flash this to you guys already? Sorry if things are getting a little bit blown up. Yeah, and then I also, because I'm using these, so with these socks, I'm not really like knitting them at my downtime. I actually have these more so to work on when I'm reading, either for school or for pleasure. If I'm in like class or like I'm in a seminar for school, I can just knit on these. So because they're mindless, I don't have to pay attention to what I'm doing, and I could just kind of like accomplish my knitting while focusing on school. So because of that, I ended up deciding to kind of do 2 at a time, kind of. So I ended up casting on with the mini that came with the sock set, cuffs, another pair. So the cuff is all knit up, minus like 2 stitches. And yeah, so once I'm done with this leg and I need to work on the heel, what I'm going to do is then cut the yarn, of course, and start working on the leg for this when I'm in class or if I have to read or something like that. So I always have stocking knot to work on, and then I could work on like the heel and the gusset like during the night or later on in the day. So I just wanted to make sure that I always had that, because I never usually knit socks like this. I usually just like knit one and then I'll cast on the second one. But again, because I'm using this more as like something that I'm doing while I'm focusing on other things, I just thought that'd be maybe kind of a good thing to do, if that makes sense. But yeah, no, and you know, I held on to this yarn I think for 2 years now, and I was trying to find like the perfect pattern for this. Like, what do I knit with this yarn? And you know, I ended up thinking like, is there anything more perfect than knitting this yarn for my love? You know, we both love Colorado. We've both been out there to the Rocky Mountains, and I just think that was like our first vacation together, was up to Colorado. So many moons ago. So I thought, you know what, this would be really nice, I think. something to remember by. So that is my simple project I've been working on. And then my not so simple project I have in my prickly owl bag. And so in this project bag, I actually have a gift knit for my mom, which is why I haven't been working on my pink fizz, because I really wanted to try and get this gift knit done by the end of February. My mom's birthday is in March, but just have time to block and take pictures, maybe try to do another podcast. So I am knitting the Bronte Sister Shawl by Lindsey Fowler of Larkspur Handmade. So this is my first time using Lolo Did It yarn. I bought this last year. I was going to make something for my mom last year, and I did not do that. I originally actually planned on making a different pattern with this yarn, but I'm really loving how it's knitting up with this pattern. And the yarn colors, I believe this darker blue one, this is called Pride and Joy. And then this is called Winter is Coming, which is pretty accurate for the current moment. And then I have a lighter blue color that I don't have on my person right now, and that one is called Ice Ice Baby, I believe. And this is a really interesting base. So this is called the Dreamy Base by Lolo Did It, and it is 70% superwash merino wool, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere. And it's a really interesting material and fabric that is being knit up, and it's heavier than just merino. I mean, it has to be the silk. But it's still, it's still light, it's still fingering. But just like when I was comparing the cake of this to just a regular superwash merino, you can feel like there's a difference in the yarn. Yeah, my mom's favorite color is blue, and yeah, I just really love how this is knitting up. I am using the recommended needles, which I believe is a US 4. These little stitch markers that I have are from Rival Jewels, I believe. They're just little stone ones. I made modifications. So when you're supposed to be doing the changes from the lace to the stocking net, or maybe it's stocking net to lace, I was supposed to do a purl bump, so purl row, so it kind of gives this garter edge. I didn't do that. I actually missed it the first time she had that in the pattern, and I was like, well, I already missed it once and it was fine, so I'm just gonna keep going with it. And then I made a little bit of a mistake. I think I was off by a stitch and I didn't really catch it until later, but you can see in this blue, this lace panel here is just ever so slightly off. But it's not, I don't think it's that noticeable. Maybe if I block it, it will be more noticeable. But even when I kind of stretch it out to look, I feel to a non-knitter, it's not going to be that noticeable. And, I knit so, once I saw that, I was like, there's no way I'm pulling back to knit that and to fix that. It's not that big of a deal. And I just kind of wanted to mention that because I think sometimes we get kind of fixed in perfect knitting. And I knit and I'm not perfect. And sometimes that's, it does bother me and I do have to rip back. If I saw it again, maybe I'd rip back. Now that I also know how the lace stitches work more, when you get in kind of to the rhythm and the flow of lace, and you can see how the pattern is knitting up and how the stitches are moving, that's a little bit different. When I was in this paneling, I didn't quite get it yet until I got into the speckled colorway. But yeah, you know, it happens. It's a design element. Nothing is perfect, but that's handmade, right? It's not mass produced, and it's still, you know, the thought that counts. And let's see if my mom even notices. But that's that for all of my making. I also wanted to kind of talk though about my stash down 2021. I counted the amount of skeins that I had. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that. And then I was really excited about the shout out that I got from Needles at the Ready, that I also made like a list of people that I wanted to kind of give a shout out to. There was like over 20 something people. I have like a lot of people I follow on YouTube, but I was also trying to find people that had less than like 10K subscribers, which is still a lot. But you know, there are some people, I think for the most part, we all kind of know the podcasters who have like large followings. So I was trying to find people who didn't have as large of a following. But so I think every episode here and out, I'll just kind of mention a few people because I still have like 20 something people on that list. But first, let's talk about knitting our stash down. So I ended up, so originally I was going very in depth with my stash. I was like writing how many skeins of woolberry do I have? How many skeins of fingering weight do I have? And I was putting it all on Ravelry. And then I stopped like halfway. I still had like a bag and a bin of yarn I had to go through. I was like burnt out from doing all that. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pull all my yarn out again and just count how many skeins I have and call it a day. And probably delete my stash in Ravelry because I don't even have pictures to go with it. So whatever. But yeah, so some things that I kind of excluded from my stash down. So if I had a project already in the works, I'm not going to count the yarn that's in the project. Now, for instance, my winter honey, I did knit a few rows on there even though I haven't showed it. And a couple weeks ago, I did use a new skein. So like any skein that I use that's new in a project, I will count. And I also didn't count anything that was a mini that was 20, like, so anything that that's not included in like leftovers. So if I knit a pair of socks and I have like 20-30 grams of yarn left, like I'm not going to count that. But like if I have like my advent calendar, for instance, the 24 minis, I'm not going to count, but the skein of yarn I got on Christmas Day, I'm going to count. But if something is like 25 grams or more, I am counting, and I do have a lot, so it's a big number, and I do have a lot of like 100 gram yarn skeins of yarn, but I also have like a bunch of 50 grams and a bunch of 25 grams, like the mohair I have a ton of mohair that's 25 grams. So it's a lot, but I feel confident that I think I can get at least a third of this down. So when I started out in 2021, I didn't have the pink fizz on my needles yet, and you know, the Habitation throw didn't count because again, those are 20 gram minis. But besides like the projects I already had started, I started the year off with 289 skeins of yarn. But in January, I stashed down 13 yarns. So 10 of those were through like destashes. Again, my pink fizz, those were 2 balls of yarn, right? I had 25 gram mohair, a 50 gram a fingering weight, and then the winter honey, I used new skein. So I'm down to 276. And yeah, so I figured at the end of February or whenever I podcast next, if it's in March, I will kind of talk about the yarn that I'm, you know, caked and started using and all of that stuff. Let's see how much more yarn I can use the remainder of February. But like I said, I think honestly, because I know I have 25 and 50 gram skeins of yarn, I feel like I can get through like a third of this. So my goal is to get down to 200 this year. which is still a lot, but I think I could do it. Yeah, so, if you guys know how much yarn you have in your stash, or if you're just like, after maybe you see this and you're like, oh yeah, like, let me just see how much yarn I have. I'd actually love to know. So if you feel comfortable, if you want to give me the number of, like, your stash number, I just curious. And I think it'd be kind of fun to just kind of like talk about how much we've destashed or knit down our stash this year. And then, as I said before, I just wanted to give a shout out to some podcasts, and I'll have the link down below. If you are even looking for more podcasts, I believe episode 6, I also gave some shout outs on that episode. So if you like see these, you're like, I follow all these people already. Do you have anything else? Check out episode 6 show notes. Some podcasts I've really been loving is the Bearded Purl podcast by Caleb and Justin. They are hilarious. They are from Wisconsin, and I love hearing about the shenanigans that they're getting into prior to, even before they start talking about their knitting. Emily from Quiet Happiness Knits. I am slightly envious of Emily's setup. When the weather is nice, she tends to podcast outside in like this little wooded area, and I thought about that, like in the summer, if I should like go to the woods and like take my knitting and my podcast, and maybe I will, especially if I'm only knitting on a couple projects every month. But also the idea of talking to this camera with the potential of somebody walking past me kind of makes me very insecure. But maybe, we'll see. Maybe I'll bring my boyfriend with me and tell him he has to stay there so I don't look like crazy. And then another podcast is Natasha from Northern Knits and Pearls. I love that she does a vlog and a podcast every month. So if you're interested and you haven't checked her out, I totally would. She's from Vancouver. And so when she does her vlogs, she likes to like include some nature in there, and her boyfriend also go hiking and stuff. And I just really like that. And then a very new to me podcast is Merryweather Knits, and I believe that's Gabriella. She is an American living in Germany with her husband and her daughter, I believe. I've only watched a few episodes, but her like persona is just super bubbly and energetic, and I love it. I love how happy she is in her podcast. So yeah, if you're interested in that. And then I've really been into Kat from Heather and Hops, her podcast. She is not new to me. Actually, Nicole from Thyme Weaver did a interview with her last year, and I'll link Nicole's page down too. And that's when I actually, like, I've heard her, I've like seen her in the community, but I don't think I was following her until that interview. And then I like watched a couple of her videos, but I realized I didn't subscribe to her. And then a couple weeks ago, I don't know, I ended up going back on her channel and subscribing, and I've been like watching videos and catching up, and I just love how like calming her videos are, and I really love her making and stuff too. So I'll have all those links down below. And then really quickly, I also wanted to give a shout out to 2 non-knitting podcasts that or videos, like YouTubers that I've really been enjoying. So one of them, her name is Morgan Long. I will have her linked down below. She just makes very whimsical videos. A lot of times she might be like reading or cooking or exploring the outdoors. She's from Portland area, in Oregon. I know there's a right way to say Oregon and Oregon. Oh man. Anyways, sorry. I know people who do like field work in Oregon, and there's like, they tell me I say it incorrectly from what like people who are actually from the state say it, and now I'm double guessing how to say it. So anyways, she I really love her videos. She has like, they're very just like whimsical and usually upbeat, although, if she's having a crap day, like she'll mention like not everything is rainbows and unicorns. And then the other YouTuber I've really been enjoying, I hope I don't say his last name wrong, is Andrei Jikh. I've been really getting into learning more about personal finance. I opened up some brokerage accounts, so like I'm doing the whole like stock thing this year. And I've really just been very interested in investing and just growing my own, personal wealth. These people, so I've been watching YouTubers. There's a few people I've really been enjoying. These people are not financial advisors, so, please, if you watch them, don't like take everything what they say to heart. But I do still love watching them, and I still think they're informative. And they also just give you something to kind of look up more into for yourself. And I love his editing style. He used to be like a magician, I guess. So he a card magician, and he also will make like 90s kind of like Pokemon references and stuff like that. But it's just really fun, and I think he puts a lot of effort into his videos, and I really appreciate that. And also the way he explains things, at least for me, like it's very easy to comprehend. So if you are interested in more about personal finance and you don't really know where to start, I would just check out his video and see what comes up. And you never know what kind of path you might take in becoming more knowledgeable in that area. So that is all I have for making. Thank you so much for checking out my video. I will be talking about books, but if that's not your thing, I totally understand. If you are new or you're a viewer but you haven't subscribed and you would like to, please do. And also if you can give this video a thumbs up so that other knitters might also be able to find this video. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, rest of your week. But if you are interested in talking about books, I have completed 2 books, and I'm reading one. So just really quickly, because I want to talk about the books that I finished, I'm just reading Dave Ramsey, The Total Money Makeover. Again, I'm in this whole personal finance thing. I've read some financial books before. If you're really wanting to learn more about it, this is not the book for you. But if you're just kind of looking for like motivation, like to just like stick to a budget and stuff, this book might be for you. I think it's okay so far. I'm not, again, to me, it's more like there's a lot of examples of people who are like trying to who got out of debt. But if you want to learn like how to be financially free or better with your like money and budget and stuff, I would start out with different books. But I did finish 2 books, and I loved them both. Like a lot. I mean, so the first book that I completed, which I think I will officially say is probably my all-time favorite book. I have been waiting for this moment for so long. There's so many books out there that I love, but I can never say like that book is my all-time favorite book. It has been so hard. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of picky. But this book just like hit me in such a way that I've never felt before. So this is called The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. It is a beautiful book. I don't even know where to start, but I'll try my best. So The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue follows Addie LaRue, and she ends up making a deal. So she's like, I think around 23, early 1700s, and she's about to be like married off, and she doesn't want that. Like she's like, I want my freedom. I have too much to live for. I want to explore. Like I want to see the world. Although at the time she didn't really know exactly what that meant. She never really realized how large the world was until years later. But she didn't want to sacrifice her freedom and be forever in the small village that she grew up in. And so she ends up making this debt, or this deal with this like god, but he's kind of like a god of darkness. And so she ends up getting immortality. But the kicker is that no one remembers her. So as soon as they like leave the room and come back and whatever, they totally forget who she is. She can't say her name to anybody, and so it's just like it's this life to explore everything, but also to be forgettable. Like she's can't be remembered. So, and the story kind of goes through like back and forth between what's present day though in this novel is 2014. And it goes back through kind of like the different years in her life. So through the 1700s, through the 1800s. And at first, I will admit, I was like, when it kind of went back to like, oh, this is Addie in like 1750 something, or, you know, whatever, I've kind of found that to have some lulls in there. And at first I was like, oh, is this really necessary? Like to go in depth as much as we did. But I think once I finished this book, I totally understood more so why the author did that. And, I don't know. I feel different about those sections now than when I was originally reading them. So yeah, so you kind of go through back and forth, and then in 2014, which is like I said, present day, she meets this person named Henry. And Henry, he ends up remembering her. And he, I can't, you know, I don't want to give away like why he remembers her, why he's able to remember her. But Henry is like, he's, I think like Kim of Hugo Canyon said, because I was talking to her about this on Instagram, I think she said like, he is the character with everyone who just wants to like feel like enough. We were just kind of like talking about that. For everyone who hasn't been seen but wants to be seen. And yeah, to just feel like they're enough in their lives. And I think for me, as much as like I said before, I've loved all these other stories and all these other characters, I've never like fully connected to characters before on such an emotional level, except like this is the first time that I have with Addie and Henry. And you know, Addie, like I said, she wants to see the world. She wants to be free. And there's a lot of times where I don't, like, you know, like, yeah, I want a family and I want to get married and I want to have a house and, you know, do all the things. And then on the other hand, I want to, you know, be like, I can't remember his name, but the dude from Into the Wild, you know, where, you know, just get a bus or hitchhike, which that's not safe anymore, but just like travel the country and see things that usually don't see. And I don't know, it's just like a different level of freedom, but also yeah, just to be worth it to people, which I know I am, but like I don't know, it's just it's a really good book. It's a great book. I would highly recommend. I don't even know. So that is that book. And there's so much more, but to not give away the plot, I am going to not talk about it anymore. Yeah, so the other book that I have read was an audiobook, and it was Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I believe the full-on title is Wild from Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail. If you're not familiar, the Pacific Crest Trail is like a hiking trail that goes from Mexico all the way to Canada, mostly through like California, so like California, Oregon, Washington. Very similar to the Appalachian Trail on like the West Coast, if you're familiar with the Appalachian Trail on the eastern part of the US. Yeah, and I saw the movie from that book. I think it came out in 2016. And I loved the movie. Reese Witherspoon is the main character. It's based on, you know, it's her memoir. So it's, you know, based on a true story. And I really enjoyed it. And again, it was like that movie. I was like, oh, I really want to go and hike the PCT. For like 6 months and just really be in there and just see like nature and life and feel a different kind of a different kind of struggle than what I'm used to. just really push myself. I think hiking, I've only done day hikes before. I've never done like overnight hikes. That's something I would love to do one day. I've talked about it with my boyfriend, so hopefully we will. But yeah, I really loved the book. I was actually surprised how much I enjoyed it. Like, I knew I was going to probably like it because I loved the movie, but I really loved her story, and I highly recommend the book. Yeah, I do like it better than the movie. And I think she just, I think my favorite part of the story was when she like finishes her journey and she just like sits down, and it's just like this overwhelming feeling of just relief and pride and like sadness to a certain extent, because like she did it, but you know, it's like the end of one chapter and on to a new one. And I just could feel that. Like, I could feel that emotion of doing something and seeing something beautiful and her own personal growth and journey. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just more, maybe because I've been reading more these past couple years, I'm starting to just feel more connected to the characters that I read. But I really loved it, and I would highly recommend. I liked the audiobook. At first, I wasn't sure about the narrator because she was a little bit too robotic for me. But I ended up enjoying it. I would recommend it as like the narrator. It's like my biggest thing with audiobooks is it has to be a good narrator, because I can't listen to it if I can't stand the voice. So yeah, so that's about it. I hope the book section wasn't like too rambly. I think it's just a little bit hard to put into words how some of these books are making me feel, especially not trying to give away plots. But yeah, you guys, please read this book if you get the chance. And it's just, just really quickly, the writing in this book is also like phenomenal. It's not just a great story. Her writing is just so beautiful. Like V.E. Schwab, I'm definitely reading more of her books. But yeah, so that's all I have. If you're enjoying a book that you're loving, you'll leave that down below. And I hope you guys, as I said before, have a wonderful rest of your day, rest of your week, rest of your February, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.